The sea was calm at first, gentle waves rising and falling under a silver moon. Then the air shifted, carrying a whisper of thunder across the sky. Above the clouds, Zeus stirred, his gaze fixed on the endless world below. Deep beneath the waves, Poseidon's trident glowed, stirring currents that stretched for miles. They were brothers, bound by blood and fate, yet divided by power and pride. Once, they had stood side by side, victors in the great war against the Titans. They had carved the universe into realms, each ruler of a mighty domain. Zeus claimed the skies, with storms and lightning answering only to his hand. Poseidon shaped the seas, his command reaching into every river and tide. Their strength was vast, their rule unmatched, yet their bond carried hidden cracks. For in the silence between storms, envy whispered and shadows grew. Who truly held the greater power, the sky above or the sea below? Mortals sensed the tension, though they could not name it, only feel its weight. A farmer feared the heavy rain, a sailor prayed against sudden waves. Above them, two gods listened, their hearts restless, their pride unyielding. The stage was set, not for war, but for a clash of wills. They were brothers born from the same storm, yet their paths soon carried different burdens. Zeus, youngest of the Olympians, rose with thunder in his veins and command in his eyes. Poseidon, older by years, found solace in the rhythm of the tide and the weight of the deep. Together, they had faced Cronus, their father, and together they had broken chains of fear. When victory was theirs, they stood upon a new dawn, gazing at a world yet unshaped. The earth stretched vast, rivers cut valleys, mountains rose, and the sea whispered unclaimed. The brothers knew power required order, and order demanded division of realms. By casting lots, they sealed fate, Zeus to the heavens, Poseidon to the seas. Hades, silent and stern, accepted the underworld as his eternal throne. For a while, harmony reigned, as each brother built his kingdom with pride. Zeus filled the skies with clouds, stars, and storms, declaring himself the highest of all. Poseidon carved trenches, raised islands, and sent waves racing across the horizon. Their laughter still echoed on Olympus, and their bond was not yet broken. But beneath the cheer, Poseidon's heart grew heavy, stirred by whispers of doubt. Did not the sea touch every shore, cradle every sailor, shape every coast? Was not the ocean the womb of a life, endless and eternal in its reach? Zeus, seated on high, often spoke as if sky ruled sea, as if thunder ruled tide. He cast lightning over oceans, expecting Poseidon to yield in silent agreement. Yet Poseidon's pride swelled, not with rage, but with longing for recognition. The mortals who worshipped him brought offerings of fish, wine, and salt. But more temples rose in Zeus's name, for farmers prayed for rain and kings for favor. Each prayer to the sky echoed in Poseidon's mind like a wave-striking rock. And so began the quiet rivalry, not of war, but of influence and honor. Zeus, secure in his throne, did not notice the shadow of envy at first. But Poseidon, with eyes as deep as trenches, watched every sign, every gesture. When storms gathered over seas, he wondered if Zeus claimed more than his share. When mortals thanked the heavens, he questioned if they forgot the sea's embrace. The brothers met often in council, laughter masking the silent tension. Yet in Poseidon's chest, a storm brewed, restless, waiting for release. For though he loved his brother, he could not ignore the weight of imbalance. And so the story of their clash was seeded, long before the first wave rose. It was not a clash of weapons, nor of blood, but of pride and identity. The sea and the sky, forever bound, forever divided, stood ready to test each other. This was the beginning of Poseidon's unrest, and the first ripple before the storm. The world was vast, untamed, and filled with promise when the brothers claimed their realms. The decision was made by lot, a simple act that carried the weight of eternity. Zeus lifted his gaze to the heavens, where stars stretched like diamonds across endless black. There he found his throne, crowned by thunder and lightning, ruler of clouds and storms. Poseidon turned to the sea, endless and restless, a kingdom as deep as it was wide. The waves welcomed him, rivers bent to him, and the salt wind carried his name. Hades, the third brother, accepted the underworld, where silence reigned and shadows obeyed. Each brother walked a path unique, yet together they formed balance across the cosmos. Zeus in the sky, Poseidon in the sea. Hades below, 3 rulers, 3 domains. The heavens became a symbol of order, guiding mortals with rain, light, and thunder. The seas became a cradle of mystery, bringing life, trade, and peril to humankind. The underworld became a place of passage, feared and honored as the final home. Mortals looked upward to Zeus, praying for rain to bless their fields and vines. They turned to Poseidon when setting sail, begging safe passage across unpredictable waters. They honored Hades in whispers, leaving offerings for spirits who crossed the dark rivers. Balance seemed steady, but beneath it lay currents of doubt and unspoken rivalry. Zeus stood tallest on Olympus, holding the title of king, the crown of authority. Poseidon accepted his lot, yet often wondered if sea and sky were truly equal. The sea touched every coast, shaped every island, and swallowed every river that flowed. Why then should the sky claim greater power when clouds themselves fed the oceans? He raised mountains beneath the water, volcanoes bursting through waves, reminders of his reach. He unleashed storms of his own, testing mortals who forgot his dominion. Yet Zeus believed all storms belonged to him, for thunder rolled with his command. When rain fell, mortals thanked the heavens, forgetting the sea that birthed the clouds. Each prayer for fertile earth echoed in Poseidon's ears like a forgotten hymn. The sea god's temples stood strong along coasts, but inland they grew fewer. Zeus's shrines rose on mountains, in valleys, and within the hearts of kings. The crown of Olympus remained on his brow, and none dared to question it. But Poseidon's pride was not a tempest of hatred. It was a tide of yearning. He longed not for Zeus's fall, but for recognition of the sea's true power. For every mortal who breathed, every field that thrived, depended on waters he ruled. Still, he held his silence, keeping peace among brothers as long as balance endured. But deep currents cannot be stilled forever, and Poseidon's thoughts began to swell. The division of realms had been meant as harmony, yet it planted the seeds of envy. Sky above, sea below, and shadows beneath. The order was clear, but fragile. And in the fragility of that order, the first winds of discord began to stir. The seed of rivalry was small at first, a whisper in the silence between storms. Zeus looked down from Olympus, watching clouds drift like banners across the sky. He believed the heavens ruled all, for without rain, the earth would wither and die. Poseidon, beneath the waves, felt differently, for the sea cradled life in its endless depths. Every river that nourished the land flowed back into his domain, returning to his embrace. Every coastline bore his mark, carved by tides and reshaped by the breath of waves. Yet mortals often praise the sky more than the sea, lifting eyes to thunder above. Zeus spoke as though the heavens commanded earth, sky, and ocean alike. His voice carried pride, not cruelty, but it struck Poseidon like a weight upon the tide. One evening, as clouds gathered, Zeus declared rain would bless the fields of men. Poseidon listened in silence, his trident resting against coral, his thoughts churning. "Without the sea," he murmured, "the clouds would have no breath, no gift to give." The waves rose in answer, a quiet reminder of the ocean's hidden strength. Fishermen prayed for calm seas, yet their offerings were fewer than the temples of Zeus. Inland, far from coasts, mortals raised altars to thunder and fire from the sky. Poseidon felt their prayers slipping past him, flowing upward, leaving his name unspoken. A storm of pride brewed within, not of hatred, but of longing to be seen. He walked among coral palaces, his steps echoing like distant surf against stone. Do they forget the sea feeds them? Do they not know life begins in water? The words were carried by currents, reaching dolphins, whales, and creatures of the deep. The ocean stirred with unease, reflecting the heart of its master, restless and proud. Zeus, high upon Olympus, heard only the thunder in his own voice. He did not see the quiet swell of envy rising from beneath the waves. He believed Poseidon content, strong and unshaken, a brother loyal and steadfast. But in Poseidon's silence, the first rumbles of discord began to echo. The gods on Olympus sensed the shift, though they spoke of it only in whispers. Hera glanced toward the sea, wondering if waves would soon rival thunder. Athena watched carefully, her wisdom noting balance was tipping, however slightly. The mortal world felt it too, in sudden storms that rose without warning. A sailor spoke of lightning that split the horizon while the sea rose in fury. A farmer saw rain fall too heavy, drowning fields instead of feeding them. The balance between sky and sea faltered, not by war, but by pride alone. Zeus claimed the skies as the crown of power. Yet Poseidon knew another truth. For every drop of rain began as sea, and every storm carried the ocean's breath. This knowledge grew in him, steady and unyielding, like a tide no wall could hold. The seed of rivalry had been planted, and in silence it began to grow. Mortals were the first to feel the tension, though they could not name the cause above. The skies darkened without warning, and waves rose high when seas should have been calm. A farmer stood in his field, staring at clouds that rumbled though no storm was due. The rain fell heavy, drowning crops, while rivers spilled over and swallowed the earth. To him, it felt like Zeus had turned his blessing of rain into a burden. But far away, a fisherman clutched the mast of his boat against sudden towering waves. He prayed to Poseidon for mercy, but the sea offered no calm, only unrest. The mortals whispered that gods were quarreling, though they dared not speak it aloud. At night, village elders told stories of balance, sky, and sea working hand in hand. Yet children heard the thunder roll while the sea roared, and they felt only fear. The tension between brothers spread across the world like ripples crossing a still pond. It was not war, yet it felt like battle, for mortals lived caught between both realms. They could not escape the rain, nor the waves, nor the uncertainty of divine moods. Zeus claimed he blessed mortals with rain for their fields, yet it fell too fierce. Poseidon claimed he offered safe seas, yet storms rose sudden and took ships away. Neither god meant to destroy, but pride made their gifts heavy, sharp, and unpredictable. Priests in temples prayed louder, burning incense and begging for calm from both sides. Some lifted their hands to the sky, crying for Zeus's favor to return. Others left shells and salt on the shore, hoping Poseidon would ease his storms. But few dared to speak openly of the clash, fearing divine ears would hear. The gods upon Olympus noticed the unease, though mortals felt it more deeply. Hera looked upon the world and saw prayers scattered, uncertain where to land. Apollo's music could not drown the sound of thunder and crashing waves together. Artemis saw hunters lost in storms, animals fleeing when skies and seas clashed. And Athena, ever watchful, saw the roots of discord spreading through mortal lands. She knew mortals mirrored their gods, and strife above meant fear below. The harmony once binding earth, sea, and sky was unraveling thread by thread. It was not spoken, but mortals began to wonder if balance had broken. Sailors refused voyages, farmers feared planting, traders held back their goods. The world itself seemed caught between two forces unwilling to bend. Yet in taverns and quiet firesides, whispers grew into questions. If Zeus and Poseidon truly quarreled, who would suffer more, gods or mortals? For storms that came too strong hurt the world, and the world was theirs to live. Above Olympus, thunder rolled as if to answer, but the seas answered with a roar. And so mortals waited, uncertain, feeling the invisible storm of pride between two brothers. Olympus stood tall above the clouds, its halls gleaming with marble and gold. The gods gathered there often, sharing feasts, music, and stories of mortal prayers. Yet in those days, the air within the council was heavy with unspoken tension. Zeus sat upon his throne, his presence bright as lightning, his voice steady as thunder. Beside him, Poseidon's trident leaned against the floor, silent yet sharp as a wave. The other gods watched closely, for they too felt the rift widening between brothers. Hera, queen of Olympus, folded her hands and studied both with careful suspicion. Athena's eyes glimmered with wisdom, noting how pride was shifting into rivalry. Apollo strummed his lyre, yet even melody could not soothe the crackling air. Ares smiled faintly, for conflict, in any form, stirred his restless heart. Demeter frowned, fearing for mortals whose fields already suffered under storm and flood. The council began as always, with prayers from mortals recited by the priests. Zeus spoke of kings who sought victory, farmers who begged for fertile rains. Poseidon listened, silent, as offerings to the sea were fewer, less frequent than before. When his turn came, he mentioned sailors lost to sudden storms and prayers left unheard. His words were calm, but beneath them rolled the depth of a brewing tide. The council fell quiet, as if every god felt the undercurrent of meaning. Zeus lifted his gaze, his eyes flashing like lightning upon distant mountains. "The skies provide life," he said, "and without rain, earth and sea would wither." Poseidon met his gaze, the calm of his voice masking the roar within. "And yet, it is the sea that feeds the sky, for clouds are born from water." The chamber stilled, marble pillars echoing their words like thunder across a canyon. Some gods nodded in agreement with Zeus, fearing the loss of his favor. Others murmured softly for Poseidon, recognizing the truth of his claim. The council fractured subtly, loyalties shifting like shadows cast by flickering flame. Hera finally spoke, her voice cold yet clear, urging both to find balance. But balance is fragile when pride has already begun to tip the scales. Zeus rose from his throne, lightning coiling faintly around his hand like a warning. Poseidon's grip tightened on his trident, though he did not lift it. Athena stepped forward, her wisdom sharp as a blade, her voice steady. "Brothers," she said, "you quarrel not for mortals, but for pride, and pride blinds even gods." Her words lingered in the air, heavy as the silence that followed them. Yet neither Zeus nor Poseidon spoke further. their eyes locked in unyielding defiance. The council ended not with peace, but with silence, broken only by distant thunder. As the gods left the hall, whispers spread like smoke among them all. The world above was changing, and so too was the unity of Olympus. For where once laughter had bound them, now division grew like cracks in stone. And in the quiet heart of Olympus, the storm between brothers deepened unseen. The winds shifted across the Aegean, carrying with them whispers of unease among sailors and kings. Mortals spoke cautiously, for every storm and every drought felt like the gods were watching. In palaces, rulers worried that omens meant their cities would soon fall from favor. Priests studied the skies and seas, yet the signs contradicted one another. Where Zeus's lightning split the heavens, Poseidon's waves rose high against the shores. In Corinth, a merchant delayed his voyage, fearing the sea would betray him. In Sparta, warriors saw thunderclouds gather before their campaigns and hesitated to march. Even Athens, city of wisdom, grew restless as omens troubled its scholars. Athena herself walked among them unseen, noting how fear spread faster than truth. She saw mortals sacrifice double, some to Zeus, some to Poseidon, uncertain who to appease. Temples glowed with fire, smoke rising in frantic offerings day and night. Yet the balance of devotion wavered, like scales shifting under invisible hands. Some kings raised monuments to Zeus, declaring sky above all else. Others built harbors and statues for Poseidon, praying for safety on the seas. The rivalry of gods had become a rivalry among mortals, subtle but growing. Families argued, sailors cursed the skies, farmers cursed the seas, and unity thinned. It was as if Olympus had poured its discord into mortal hearts. Athena pondered deeply, for she foresaw conflict not only in heaven, but on earth. She approached Hera in the quiet halls of Olympus, speaking with rare candor. The world bends under their pride, she warned, and mortals cannot bear its weight. Hera's eyes were sharp, her patience for Zeus thin, yet her love for order strong. Zeus must not be challenged, Hera said, but Poseidon's pride grows dangerous. Athena countered with wisdom, both must yield, or all will suffer. But Hera was silent, unwilling to choose between her husband's will and Olympus's peace. Meanwhile, Apollo saw temples split with offerings divided between sea and sky. He sang, hoping to soothe the heavens, but even song could not heal pride. Artemis roamed the forests, watching animals flee storms and rivers swollen with rain. Demeter wept quietly, crops ruined by floods, lands parched where rain refused to fall. Each god felt the strain, yet no one dared to confront the brothers together. Only Hestia, keeper of the hearth, prayed in silence for unity to return. She alone remembered that fire needed both air and water to survive. But mortals did not think so deeply. They only feared the growing signs. A farmer who lost his harvest cursed Zeus aloud, trembling as thunder replied. A sailor who buried his drowned son swore never to offer Poseidon tribute again. The bond between gods and mortals was fraying, each prayer sharper, more desperate. And high above, Zeus and Poseidon watched, each convinced his dominion was rightful. They did not see prayers as cries of fear, but as proof of loyalty. Thus, every storm and every drought became a measure of devotion claimed. And the seeds of discord, once sown in Olympus, began to bloom across the world. The sea churned restless under a sky that no longer promised peace, only unspoken rivalry. Ships set sail with hesitation, for captains read omens in every shifting wave and cloud. Fishermen prayed longer, casting nets with trembling hands, fearing Poseidon's mood might change. Farmers lifted their eyes, pleading with Zeus, yet rains came too harsh or not at all. It seemed the balance of nature itself was bent by pride of two mighty brothers. One morning, an island village woke to find the shore dragged far into the sea. Children ran across sand where fish flopped helplessly, confused by the sudden retreat of water. Then, without warning, waves returned, towering high, swallowing homes and scattering cries. The survivors lit fires, begging Poseidon for calm, though they knew not if he listened. Elsewhere, lightning struck a barren hill, splitting rock, setting fields aflame despite no storm. The farmers called it a sign of Zeus's anger, though none knew the true cause. Priests tried to soothe their people, but fear grew like wildfire across the land. In Delphi, the oracle spoke in riddles, her voice trembling as if the earth itself shook. Two crowns clash above, and the world lies heavy beneath their pride, she warned. Kings sent messengers racing to temples, bearing offerings to both sea and sky alike. But the gods above only saw division, counting which prayers were given to whom. Poseidon claimed the seas groaned with loyalty. Zeus claimed the heavens echoed louder still. The rift deepened, not in battle of weapons, but in the silence of defiance. Mortals began to notice their gods no longer walked in harmony upon the earth. Where once festivals honored sky and sea, together, now they were split in two. In Corinth, they danced for Poseidon near the harbor, leaving the skies unpraised. In Thebes, they lifted songs to Zeus, ignoring the ocean's vast domain. The unity that bound mortals to Olympus cracked like pottery dropped upon stone. Athena traveled quietly among the cities, her heart heavy with what she saw. She whispered wisdom to rulers, urging them to seek balance, but few dared listen. For fear ruled stronger than wisdom, and men clung to whichever god they trusted more. Meanwhile, storms rose fierce in seas where sailors once found calm waters to trade. Zeus answered with lightning, storms rolling across fields already drowned in rain. Mortals began to murmur that the gods were no longer protectors, but rivals. And such murmurs, though quiet, drifted upward, carried by winds and tides alike. Olympus itself grew restless, marble pillars echoing with whispers among the gods. Apollo strummed no joyful hymns, only mournful tones to mark the shifting age. Demeter turned her gaze away, unwilling to watch fields suffer more ruin. Ares stirred, eager for conflict, though this was a war fought not with swords. And Hestia alone kept the flame steady, though she too feared it might dim. The world below and above stood caught, waiting for what neither brother would yield. And in that waiting, the storm of pride grew stronger, louder, and harder to ignore. The halls of Olympus shimmered beneath dawn's light, yet within them shadows gathered unseen. Zeus stood alone upon the high terrace, gazing across the endless sweep of clouds. His brow was heavy, not with storms, but with pride too great to bend. He whispered to the sky, convincing himself that all creation thrived by his will. Every bolt of lightning, every drop of rain, he saw as proof of dominion. Yet deep within, he felt the sea's defiance echo like thunder upon his heart. At the same hour, Poseidon paced the caverns of his watery palace beneath the waves. The sea around him heaved as if sharing his turmoil, restless and unwilling to rest. He struck the floor with his trident, sending ripples through oceans far and wide. To him, every tide, every wave, every sailor's prayer was testimony to his rule. Yet he too felt the pull of rivalry stronger than the peace of brotherhood. For years the brothers had shared power, but now each believed his burden greater. Zeus claimed the skies fed earth with life. Poseidon claimed the seas cradled all. Neither would yield, and so their truths clashed like unseen storms colliding far above. On Olympus, whispers of division grew, for gods chose sides in silence. Apollo, once bright with song, now grew weary, for music could not heal this rift. Artemis stalked the forests, uneasy, for even the wild felt bent beneath discord. Hera pondered deeply, fearing not the storm itself, but the crack it left behind. Athena alone sought answers beyond pride, searching for wisdom in mortal voices. She listened to prayers, not as claims of loyalty, but as cries of fear. She heard farmers beg for rain to save crops, then curse storms that drowned them. She heard sailors beg for calm seas, then weep when storms dragged them to ruin. To Athena, this was no war of justice, only a war of vanity. She spoke in council, urging her kin to see beyond their brother's stubborn pride. But her words, though true, fell silent against the weight of Olympus's division. Each god feared choosing sides would break the fragile order that bound them. And so they did nothing, watching as the brothers' silent conflict spread below. Meanwhile, mortals grew bold in their whispers, questioning if gods still cared for men. In markets, sailors mocked the storms, saying gods quarreled like children. In fields, farmers prayed less, saying their offerings fell on deaf ears above. Such words, though small, reached Olympus, stinging pride like salt poured upon flame. Zeus saw insult, Poseidon saw betrayal, and both grew colder in resolve. The world trembled not from battle, but from silence too heavy to endure. For it is silence, not thunder, that foretells the deepest storm to come. And as dawn turned to dusk, both brothers lifted their gaze, knowing the clash was near. Night fell upon Olympus, but no stars comforted the silence between the gods. The heavens were clouded, the seas restless, as though creation itself shared their unease. Zeus sat upon his throne, his hand resting upon the scepter of storms. Poseidon lingered in the deep, trident glowing faintly in the twilight waters. Neither spoke aloud, yet their wills clashed in silence across the earth below. Mortals trembled at the signs, for each day brought storms that defied reason. The winds carried both thunder and salt, mingling sky and sea into turmoil. Farmers wept at ruined fields, sailors cursed the tides, and kings feared rebellion. The harmony of nature, once a gift of Olympus, now fractured like broken glass. Athena walked among mortals in disguise, hearing their despair grow heavier each night. She knew this struggle was not born of justice, but of wounded pride. Still, pride is a fire, and gods, like men, are too easily consumed by it. In Delphi, the oracle trembled with visions of storm and wave colliding in fury. She warned her priests, "The brothers rise against each other, and the earth bears the weight." Her words spread quickly, whispered in markets and carried by travelers across Greece. Mortals began to choose sides, some swearing fealty to Zeus, others to Poseidon. Temples became places of rivalry, prayers sharp with accusations against one god or the other. The gods above listened, their pride deepening with every word spoken below. Hera tried to mediate, urging Zeus to temper his will, but he would not bend. She turned to Poseidon, asking for patience, yet he too refused to yield. Apollo strummed his lyre in sorrow, his music echoing through empty marble halls. Artemis watched the forests fall silent as animals fled storms that never ceased. Demeter mourned harvests lost, fearing for mortals who starved beneath divine conflict. Even Hestia's sacred flame wavered, though she shielded it with all her strength. Still, no god dared to stand fully between Zeus and Poseidon. for both wielded power beyond measure, and neither would accept defeat. It was then Athena spoke once more, her voice calm but resolute. If this continues, the world will collapse not from war, but from imbalance. Her words hung heavy, ignored by prideful ears that would not hear. Zeus thundered in answer, not with words, but with lightning that split the sky. Poseidon replied with waves that crashed upon coasts, shaking harbors to their roots. The clash had begun, not with weapons drawn, but with nature itself. Mortals ran for shelter, fearing gods who once offered protection now brought ruin. The seas roared, the heavens cracked, and Olympus trembled under its own weight. In that moment, the world understood that the brothers' silence had become a storm. And the storm, once loosed, would not fade until pride was broken or peace restored. The storm raged on, and Olympus shook as though the mountain itself could not hold their fury. Zeus summoned lightning, casting it across the horizon, his will painted in bolts of fire. Poseidon rose from the depths, his trident commanding waves that towered higher than cities. The world beneath them suffered, though the gods did not yet see the weight of their pride. Mortals prayed desperately, their voices carried by the wind and swallowed by the sea. Some cried to Zeus, begging for clear skies and the warmth of the sun once more. Others turned to Poseidon, pleading for calm seas and the safety of their journeys. But the prayers did not unite. They divided, echoing the feud of the gods themselves. Athena stood at the threshold of Olympus, her gaze sharp with unyielding purpose. She called upon the council of gods, urging them to witness the chaos of their kin. Hermes flew swiftly, delivering her words to every divine ear that dared to listen. Some ignored the call, but many came, drawn by the fear of a world undone. Hera, Apollo, Artemis, Demeter, and Hestia gathered in solemn silence around Athena. Their eyes reflected storms, but also the weariness of endless divine quarrels. Athena spoke clearly, each word steady as stone. This is not a war of justice. It is a storm born of vanity and wounded pride. Her voice pierced the thunder, though Zeus glared down from the heavens. Poseidon, rising upon a wave, paused to hear her words carried across the tempest. Brothers, the world trembles not because of enemies, but because of your division. The gods shifted uneasily, for truth is heavier than lightning and deeper than the sea. Zeus clenched his fist, thunder rumbling, yet his gaze softened with fleeting doubt. Poseidon lowered his trident, the waves hesitating as though the sea itself longed for calm. Athena pressed on, her tone both firm and gentle. What glory is found in a world broken by your hands? What legacy in ruins and storms? Silence fell, though the storm still loomed, waiting upon their choice. It was Hera who stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of years beside Zeus. My husband, my brother, listen. The earth is not a stage for your rivalry. Apollo added softly, harmony is the song of life. Discord will leave only silence. Zeus looked upon his siblings, their eyes filled not with fear, but with expectation. Poseidon, too, felt the weight of their stares, heavy as the ocean's depths. At last, Zeus lowered his hand, and the lightning withdrew into quiet skies. Poseidon let his waves recede, returning to the rhythm of tides long forgotten. The storm faded, leaving only rain that fell softly, washing away fear. Mortals lifted their eyes to the heavens, unsure if they were saved or merely reprieved. Athena spoke the final words, her tone steady as dawn. Let this be a lesson written in the skies and seas. Unity sustains, pride destroys. The gods dispersed, Olympus steady once more, though scars of the storm remained below. And thus ended the clash of brothers, not with triumph, but with a fragile peace. The storm had ended, but its echo lingered across sea, sky, and earth. Mount Olympus stood tall again, yet its marble halls carried the weight of silence. Gods drifted back to their duties, though their eyes spoke of lessons not easily forgotten. Zeus returned to his throne, his scepter resting quietly, no longer eager for thunder. Poseidon sank into the depths, his trident glowing faintly, waves calmer, yet not without sorrow. The brothers had not spoken, but their actions told the tale of peace reluctantly forged. Mortals, meanwhile, stepped cautiously into sunlight, uncertain if harmony would last or fade. Fields were sown again, ships returned to harbors, and prayers softened into gratitude. Yet beneath gratitude lay a quiet fear, a memory of chaos that could rise again. The people built temples to both Zeus and Poseidon, not to honor rivalry, but to balance it. Offerings were shared between sky and sea, as though mortals themselves had learned the truth. Balance was the key, not dominance, not pride, but harmony between powers. Athena walked among the cities, disguised as a traveler, watching hope take root once more. She smiled faintly, knowing her words had reached not only gods, but mortal hearts as well. Hera lingered near Zeus, her wisdom steady, reminding him of duty over ego. Apollo's music returned, softer now, weaving songs of light instead of mourning. Artemis guided hunters in forests that flourished again after storms had passed. Demeter blessed the fields, harvests rising once more beneath her patient hands. Even Hestia's flame burned brighter, a quiet promise that home and hearth endure. Olympus had weathered the storm, but cracks of pride still lived in its foundations. And so the gods knew that peace was fragile, not eternal, always requiring care. Zeus gazed across the horizon, the weight of leadership pressing heavier than before. Poseidon, in his ocean halls, listened to the tides, their rhythm teaching him patience. Neither sought to claim victory, for victory had proven hollow when the world suffered. Instead, they shared a silence that was not rivalry, but weary understanding. Mortals told stories of the great storm, passing them down as warnings to generations. They spoke of the sky's fire, the sea's fury, and the goddess who sought balance. Bards sang of pride, but also of mercy, weaving wisdom into every verse. Children grew up hearing the tale, not of destruction, but of how peace was restored. And so the clash of Zeus and Poseidon became more than a memory. It became a reminder that even gods are bound by the balance of the world, that storms may rise, but they must give way to calm, as day follows night. That pride may burn, but it cannot last if harmony is to endure. And in the quiet after the storm, the world breathed again, whole yet forever changed. The sky stretched wide, the seas lay deep, and Olympus stood watchful over both. Peace had returned, fragile but real, a gift to gods and mortals alike. And with it came a truth etched into the fabric of creation. Unity sustains, pride destroys, and only balance can carry the world forward.